Did a U.S. military platoon have an encounter with a UFO and its occupants in Bavaria, Germany in 1966? Recently, a witness came forward to the Mutual UFO Network to tell of an incredible event that happened to him while serving in the U.S. military in 1966. At the time, Grafenmoor, Bavaria was a major training area for NATO forces. It was located close to the Czechoslovakian border. The witness was in the weapons platoon of a rifle company in the U.S. Army, U.S. Army A Company, 2nd Battalion, 21st Infantry, 24th Division. The weapons platoon was made up of 4 armored personnel carriers, which were 13-ton, lightly armored tracked vehicles. 3 of the APCs were mortar gun crews. The witness was in the Fire Direction Center. He was a driver at the time of one of the 3 APCs. It was August 31st, 1966. A team of 14 men were on a training mission out in the field by themselves. The gun crews had set up their mortars, and the Fire Direction Center had laid in the guns, which is sighting them using aiming stakes for the gun crews to pull their sights on. At dusk, the witness claims he grew tired and rolled out his sleeping bag in a nice grassy area under a tree beside his APC. Another man on his team, a sergeant, did likewise. It wasn't long before the witness was off to sleep. 3 men, one on guard duty, were watching a star or light in the sky, apparently pulsing with different colors. 2 of the men went on to their sleeping bags, but the guard stayed behind and kept his eyes on the light. The squad leader was on radio watch because they had been warned that aggressors might be trying to sneak up on them in the night. The next morning, the witness awoke to find several men talking in a group about not being woken up for guard duty. Just then, the squad leader emerged from the APC and said he had fallen asleep at the radios for some strange reason. He was adamant that this had never happened to him before. The platoon sergeant, one of the 3 watching the light the previous night, suddenly told of being in a dream state and hearing the guard yelling frantically for help. The sergeant said he couldn't move but could hear. At about 9 a.m., the men heard and saw the guard that had been on first watch during the night coming down a hill about 200 yards away. He was hysterical and crying. He said, quote, "I thought all of you were dead," unquote. He then went on to recount his story from the night before. According to him, when 2 of the 3 men watching the star the previous night went to bed, the guard went toward the wood line where he had set up camp. The guard then turned toward a clearing to the west of the camp and observed a craft which had landed there right in front of him. It had numerous lights of changing colors all down its side. The guard then saw 3 figures emerge from the craft. According to him, the figures didn't walk on the ground, rather they seemed to be floating just above the ground and bob side to side. Despite his fear, the guard yelled at them to halt. When they didn't stop, he thought about turning on his flashlight, but something in his head told him no. The guard then grabbed his aiming stake and tossed it at them. The guard was carrying a rifle, but no live rounds were issued because they were not on a range at the time. He kept hearing a voice in his head that said, "Don't be afraid, we won't hurt you." The guard heard one of the beings in the woods behind him and felt like he was being set up to be captured, so he ran away. He came upon another group of GIs some distance away and told him his story. He pleaded with them to return with him, but they wouldn't. They assumed he was intoxicated on something. He stayed with them until morning, then made his way back to the camp. As he got closer, he stood atop a hill and looked down at the clearing. The object was still there. A silver, cigar-shaped craft was standing in the spot where it had landed the night before. Terrified, he ran back to the other GIs and again begged them to come with him. They again refused. He waited for a few more hours and then got up the courage and made his way back to the camp, assuming that he would find everybody dead. After hearing the story, the men spread out and searched the area. They found the aiming stake he had thrown. Later, the sergeant, the one who had slept a few yards from the witness, recalled having a bizarre dream in which he was examined in a brightly lit operating room. He was complaining of having an awful headache. Along with this, the grassy area where they had slept appeared to have a sample taken from it. A round spot of grass and dirt a few inches deep were missing. Even stranger, the platoon sergeant recalled hearing the guard yelling desperately for help, but he couldn't move. The witness found that his APC had the infrared lenses cracked and everything electrical was burned out. He remembered the maintenance crew in the company asking what happened, as they had never seen that kind of damage done to a vehicle before. The APC had to be towed into the base that night, later to be sent back to Ordnance. The colonel, the battalion commander, wanted some explanation for all the damages. When he was told, he said that he could not file an official report because only one person was witness to the event. The witness also recalled a watch that he was given for graduation had stopped working. It was anti-magnetic and glowed in the dark, but that night the watch and the glow died. Following the event, the witness recalled that the guard on duty that night was left traumatized, totally damaged. He was sent away and the witness never saw him again. In filling out his report, the witness noted that he had no memories of that night. One has to wonder exactly what interest did the aliens have in those sleeping GIs that night.